Welcome to the Ad Nauseam podcast, where classical gourmands everywhere can finally get their fill. Join us for a delectable discussion of Greco-Roman civilization stretching from the Minoans and Mycenaeans through the Renaissance and right down to the present. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here are your hosts, Dr. David Noe and Dr. Jeff Winkle.
Welcome, listeners, to episode 127 of the Ad Nauseam podcast. My name is Dr. Jeff Winkle. I'm down here in the bunker after a bit of a break.
Bit of a break,
but it's great to be back. I'm down here with my co-host and good friend, Dr. David Sue Noe. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Yeah, I really am. I am so excited. Using the E word again.
Oh, man.
I'm throwing it around left and right.
You don't get excited, though.
I don't get excited.
No.
But I am excited because I really enjoy this podcast. And I got to travel in Greece about a week ago with my daughter, 12-year-old with a great Greek name. We went for 10 days, and as we were tooling around Greece, I was thinking about the things we've discussed, the things I've previously enjoyed. Mm-hmm. It was really sweet. It was a really great time.
That's excellent. Did you get any good ideas? We would say, hey, we got to do a show on this.
I did, actually. Okay. I got two good ideas. One was in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, a favorite place for both of us, where there are some painted wooden panels. I was not aware of these that survive from antiquity, and they're kind of cartoonish in appearance. Mm-hmm. But this is brand new for me. I hadn't thought about this, and I thought we could prepare an episode on that.
On these painted wooden panels?
Yes.
Okay, where and when do they come from?
Well, I haven't done the research yet.
All right.
It's antique. All right. It's in the museum. Okay. But the other, I think, even better idea, we'll see how it goes. So we got to workshop it maybe. Is when we were in Corinth, the second to last day, the penultimate day, the archaeological museum there in Corinth was robbed. You probably know this story.
I don't know this story.
It was robbed in the late 90s. Thousands of objects were taken. They came in by night through the ceiling, overpowered a guard, took a bunch of the objects and took them off to sell on the black market for antiquities.
Really?
And I thought, now that would be a great episode because Jeff loves the true crime stories.
Yes.
He's a total aficionado of those things.
I'm feeling a little tingly as you,
that's right.
As you described this.
So this is like a night at the museum, whichever one we're on, part 4, right? Theft at the museum.
Yeah.
I thought that would make an excellent episode.
Yeah.
So we're going to work that up.
Wow. Okay, that sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got a ton of questions, but let's save it for that episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was a really good time. Strong, intense weather. The day that we were at Delphi, Mount Parnassus, quite a nice little trek. It was 107 degrees. Now, it's not humid. It's no swampy feeling. It's a nice dry...
It's a dry heat?
Yeah, Sirocco kind of feel. We're climbing up, laboring up Parnassus. We get to the top, and just like described, there's the Roman theater. Strong gusts of wind, though.
Really?
Right? Strong gusts of wind, 40, 50 miles per hour, maybe. Took a photo of my daughter and sent it to some family members, and someone responded, "Wow, there's nobody there." And I said, "Well, actually, I just cleverly waited until they were out of the picture before I snapped it, so we wouldn't get all that background stuff."
Yes. Did your daughter enjoy Delphi?
She loved it.
Yeah.
I think her favorite though was the Acropolis.
Really?
Speaking of which, we got into the Acropolis on it would have been a Thursday morning, and I had been reading the reports all summer long about the increased foot traffic on the Acropolis.
Yeah.
So Sophia and I decided let's go early. So we didn't quite get there at 8, which was our plan, but we got there about 8:10 to avoid the queue, as the Brits say.
Yeah.
And succeeded in avoiding the queue. I think we only waited 5 minutes. It wasn't like Disney.
Yeah.
But by the time we got up onto the Acropolis at 9 a.m. on an August morning, there were 3,000 people easily crawling all over that thing. And I was just stunned by, the amount of traffic, because I've been to Athens in January primarily. I've been there in October and twice in August. I knew it would be heavily trafficked, but not like this.
Wow.
It was really overwhelming.
Yeah.
So when you were there in April,
yeah.
What was it like?
It was very busy. I think it's just slightly less busy than what you're describing. We bought what were supposed to be skip the line tickets, but no, they don't. You don't skip. There's one line.
Yeah.
And they don't allow you to skip it.
No, I think the skip the line scheme is mostly for the convenience of the ticket takers. It's more like skip their inconvenience is really what they're selling.
Right. So I don't know.
But Americans we're suckers for that, right? Ooh, we could get ahead. Let's skip the line.
Exactly. So we got these, and to this day, I'm not exactly. I'm very still foggy on what advantage we actually had.
None. We tried to do that in various places with the QR codes and so forth.
Yeah.
Not to much effect.
Right. Yeah. So I was actually surprised as how busy it was in April. The reports are that that's early April. You're kind of there before Orthodox Easter.
Yeah.
And before everything kind of really starts to heat up. But it was very busy.
Yeah.
The
second to last place we stayed was Nafplio, which you and I both like very much.
Oh yes. Yeah.
A Venetian city, right under the Venetian Empire at one point, and Greece's first capital.
Yeah.
And stayed in a really nice hotel there. It's kind of a 19th century villa, probably, or a little mansion that has been converted into a hotel right on the strip. And just a really beautiful place. Navseam Hotel, I think is what it is.
Okay.
Now, the Burj was open, the little spot in the harbor, that little island, which the Venetians fortified. We didn't make it out there.
I've never been out there.
No.
Yeah.
We had a little trouble deciding, okay, so if we want to walk down the steps of the Fortress Palamidi, which you and I did once, how are we going to work that out with the vehicle, right? So drive to the top, walk down.
Then walk back
up. We could get stuck in an infinite loop, that way. So we ended up not doing it.
You didn't do Palamidi?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Did you walk around the peninsula there?
No, actually we didn't.
Really?
It was more of just a stop. We did walk down through the piazza and got some great souvlaki, right?
Nice. Yeah.
And it was a beautiful night. So
very cool.
It was great. And I think you and I, Jeff, we should take an ad nauseum Greece tour maybe next spring.
Yeah, we've been talking about this. We kind of pulled the trigger on this,
I know.
man.
We compared it to a hayride once, remember? There was a lot of silly talk about a hayride.
That's right.
Go way back into the archives.
Yeah. Did you did you see anything new? Or
yes.
Okay. What did you encounter that was new?
Right. So my typical plan is that when I go to Greece, and I'm not going to say how many times I've been, some kind of comparison, but each time try to add something new to the itinerary so that I can expand my knowledge.
Right.
And had hoped to go to Crete. That just didn't prove possible with the time. I've never been to Crete, but we went to the island of Euboea, right?
Oh, yeah.
Evia, as the modern Greeks call it.
Yes.
And it is an island, as you know. It's just east of Attica, but connected by a bridge.
There is I was just going to ask. There is a bridge there. Yeah.
So there is there's no ferry that's necessary. So we spent 3 nights on Evia at a quaint little town, Amarinthos, just maybe 150 meters from the beach.
Nice.
And it was really, really nice.
Very cool.
Great little bakery there. We were getting donuts and drinking cappuccinos, and it was really relaxing.
Nice. And what made you choose that? Just kind of
proximity.
Yeah. Okay.
I had never been to Evia before, and so it was proximity.
Gotcha.
I wanted someplace new that was within driving distance.
Did you see any ruins there, or was it more just kind of let's just enjoy the?
It was just
ambience?
more of beach time.
Gotcha. Yeah.
The ruins, Cape Artemision, is at the far north of Evia, and that was at least a 2-hour drive. And after tramping around Athens in the intense heat for several days, didn't feel like doing that.
Right. I mean,
maybe another time.
You get there and point out and say, "Oh, there was a sea battle out there."
Well, I did that when we passed Lepanto.
Okay,
you know the Anti-Rio Bridge there,
right.
Where you cross from the Greek mainland to the Peloponnese at Patras. So I pointed out to my traveling companion, in that basilica is supposedly the head of the Apostle Andrew,
right,
in a glass case. And she said, "Can you touch it?" I said, "No, I don't think so, and I don't want to." She said, "Do you think it's really his head?" I said, "Probably not, but who knows?
Who knows?
I mean, it could be."
Right.
But then I did point out, there is where the Battle of Lepanto was fought in the, I don't have the exact date, it was 15th century, and that's where the combined forces of Europe, turned the tide of the Ottomans,
right,
temporarily at least. So
okay,
you know that spot.
I do know that spot very well. Right.
So what have you been up to the last couple of weeks?
Just kind of gearing up for the new school year, which started up on Monday. So I've been kind of trying to get back into that groove. And
what are you teaching this fall?
I'm teaching a number of sections of classical mythology.
Okay.
Which they always fill up. It's
exciting class, frankly.
It's a really fun class. I'm doing a couple of sections on world religions.
All right.
In which I try to do some kind of overlap with the Greek stuff. We
makes good sense.
It's a course that's on living religions, but I like to start with the Greeks and just talk about the religious longing is just kind of part and parcel of being human.
That's correct.
It goes back to the beginning of civilization.
The Sensus Divinitatis. Apparently, paganism is making a resurgence, though.
Is it really?
Yes, there were some pagan activities that were conducted near the Arch of Hadrian not long before we were there.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that a number of years ago when I was going by the Temple of Olympian Zeus.
That's the same spot there.
Right. Yeah. And there was these people in spangly robes marching around and blowing horns. And
I guess I kind of wonder how sincere they are, but if any true pagans are listening, before you get violent, I trust you're sincere. So.
Right. Yeah. But no, as I understand, I remember talking to the guard there.
Right.
And he was saying, there's this a small group that want to bring back the worship of the Olympian deities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not as a joke, but as a real thing.
I remember he kind of made it sound as this was at a time I don't know much about current Greek politics, but there was a kind of a strong nationalist movement that was kind of the Golden Dawn.
Yes, I remember that.
And he seemed to suggest that it was kind of part of that. So,
but why not connected to Orthodoxy?
As a part of of nationalism,
right?
All right. I think they wanted to go even deeper. They want to go farther back. Right. Yeah. Let's get back to our roots, man.
Right. That's late. The dawn of Christianity. Even that's late.
Let's
go down to the deep roots. I see.
Yeah.
So you're teaching world religions. You're teaching some classical myth.
Yeah, and then doing a course on American cinema.
Interesting.
Which is always a lot of fun.
Yeah. Right? Apocalypse Now. You're showing that one, I'm sure.
I am. The biggest challenge of that class is. Choosing, I get to show 8 films,
right? And
so choosing 8 representative films.
Yeah, obviously Barbie is going to make it in there.
Barbie, actually, our first day there was a lot of talk of Barbie. I had a student ask me, "Are we going to screen Barbie?"
And you said, "Who?"
I said, "What? What are you talking about?" Right? So, but yeah, trying to find films that represent genres and eras. It's difficult, and so you end up by choosing one film. Of course, you're leaving out hundreds.
Right.
So, but it's always fun.
Yeah, I tried to watch the new Avatar on the flight back.
Oh, yeah.
I made it about 3 minutes in, and I said, I can't do this. I don't care how long the flight is. I can't do it.
Did you? So, now, was it because of the film itself, or just, it's a film that you really have to see like an IMAX for that film to even work?
That's a good question. I thought about that because you know what the screen is like on the back of a airplane seat.
Exactly.
But it wasn't that turned me off. It was the dialogue.
Was it?
And I thought, I can't endure this.
Yeah.
Right. Silence is better than this.
Right.
So sorry, James Cameron.
Right.
What are we talking about today, Jeff?
Oh, man. Let's get into it. So this is part 2. So we did part 1 like 3 weeks ago.
That's right. No pain, no grain.
Yes. The Homeric Hymn to Demeter. And we'll do our best to wrap it up today.
Yes, that's right.
Yep.
And I thought we settled on Demeter.
Did we say Demeter?
We did settle on Demeter.
Demeter. Sorry. Okay. The Homeric Hymn to Demeter.
There we go.
Right. But so yeah, we'll do our best to kind of get through the rest of this poem. But we have a shout out.
Yes, we do.
And Dave, why don't you take this away?
Okay. So this is from one Matthew Everhard of South Butler, Pennsylvania, and he says, "I am so thankful to be a new listener to your amazing show." I like that.
I do too.
It is extremely well done, expertly produced.
Thank you, Mishka.
Thank you, Mishka, and always enlightening. You two have an excellent rapport together as co-hosts. No, we don't. And I learn something new every single time I listen. I'm a pastor, author, and Jonathan Edwards scholar. I have my own YouTube channel where I talk about life, ministry, and Reformed theology. I also teach adjunct at Reformed Presbyterian Theological Seminary. He says, recently I was thinking about your episode on loading the cannons.
I remember that one.
Yeah, Jeff, you want to take it away from there?
Sure. And he says, and I used 2 elements in your outline in my own sermon manuscript, namely a callback from my opening to digress 3/4 of the way through the message in order to lighten an otherwise very heavy sermon on the wrath of God. And another element of incorporating some anticipated replies from theoretical opponents to head off objections. It made the sermon better overall, I hope.
Yeah, so that's the refutatio. He used a refutatio.
Fantastic.
I can die a happy man now that someone used a refutatio. Yeah.
Excellent.
He says, I also took notes on the entire episode, and copied them into one of my Edwardsian notebooks, both handwritten and digital.
We encourage note-taking.
We do.
Yeah.
Where I keep my own set of miscellanies or ordered notes on all kinds of topics. I have one such notebook that is devoted entirely to philosophy. Good for you, Matthew. I added a new entry on the art of rhetoric and tagged it to Aristotle and Cicero. Whenever I learn something that bears repeating or teaching in my own contexts, I often move those items into such notebooks to be kept, perused later, and utilized as the case may be.
It's impressive. And he finishes, in any regard, I'm very thankful to have come across your podcast through Tavis Bollinger's own podcast, The Modern Puritan. Blessings and hope to see you soon.
That's very kind.
Very nice, Matthew. Appreciate the note, and happy to give you a shout out.
Yes, thank you so much for listening, keeping the flame alive out there. So, Jeff, we have our opening quote now, which is going to take us into Demeter.
Yes.
Part 2.
Yes.
Right, on the Eleusinian mysteries a little bit, and who is Demeter. So can you set that up, please?
Yes. So our opening quote is from an article entitled Mythical and Cosmological Structure in the Homeric Hymn to Demeter.
That's fine.
I can never remember.
Or Demeter if you want.
I'm gonna go back and forth. This is from one Larry Alderink, and this comes from the journal Newman, as in hello.
That's right.
Newman, 1982, and Mr. Alderink writes: in the myth, there is a delicate and fragile balance between a complex set of relationships. 4 episodic moments are primary. At first, only gods are involved. Then gods and humans interact. Next, gods and humans interact, but in a way different from the preceding stage. And finally, the scene shifts again to divine relationships. 2 structural dimensions invite attention. First, the conclusion of the myth indicates a carefully balanced relationship between gods and humans. Thus, an important factor in the myth is the care with which the myth observes 2 different levels of beings, and the refusal to confuse 2 diverse spheres, that of the gods and that of humans.
Can we pause there a second? Mm-hmm. That needs some unpacking, Jeff.
Okay.
Can you explain this? With the spheres and the myths and the diversity, I'm getting a little confused.
Right. So I think what Alderink is getting at here is that I think one of the extraordinary things about this particular hymn is how it does ultimately boil down to a positive relationship between gods and humans.
Okay.
Or at least the door is opened to a more balanced relationship between gods and humans.
Unlike some of the rest of Greco-Roman
Unlike
myth?
almost all of Greco-Roman narrative. And so I think that's what's really quite extraordinary about it. And so, and I think I would add to that, not just balanced relationship between gods and humans, but between gods and ordinary humans.
I see.
Right. So I think
not the aristocrats.
Right.
Not the leaders of society.
Right. And so I think, like, most people who are familiar with Greek myth could think of, well, what about Odysseus, right? Athena's looking out for him all the time. But I think the message that underlies a story like that is that it's extraordinary, but that's not for you, average Jane Joe Athenian.
Like Elpenor.
Yes.
Who falls off the roof
Right.
of Circe's house and isn't discovered that he's dead
Right.
until Odysseus shows up in the underworld. It must have been kind of embarrassing.
You're right.
In fact, it's amazing that we know his name, Elpenor, because usually these people are anonymous kind of spear fodder, you might say.
Exactly right. And so the fact that this is a poem that suggests this is a way for anybody.
Interesting.
And that's what I think that's what Alderink is kind of calling attention to here.
So in Star Trekian terms, everyone's a red shirt.
Exactly.
Typically.
That's right. That's right. You're there to be neutralized.
That's right. But this is different.
Yes.
The hymn to Demeter presents something different. Okay,
right.
Continue then, please.
Second, within the 2 diverse spheres, there is a division of another sort. For the first set of divine events consists of a conflict-resolution duality. The second set, that of divine human events, consists of a disguise-revelation duality. In each of the dualities, from conflict to resolution and from disguise to revelation, an event of a particularly strong character is required to effect the transformation. In the first case, mediation is required to satisfy the demands of the various deities. Demeter's demands for her daughter, Pluton's desire for his wife, and Zeus's responsibility for holding the cosmos intact. In the second case, the event consists of a revelation in which Demeter's appearance, that is, her reality, undergoes a change from a nurse to a goddess, both of which she is, of course.
Okay.
Right, so I think we have gods acting in extraordinary ways, certainly compared to the vast majority of Greek mythology.
Okay.
And their approach to human beings is radically different.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a good setup then.
Yeah.
And we can thank Alderink for drawing some of those things to our attention.
Yes.
So as we move into this then, we're going to set the stage about how it is that Demeter comes to be worshipped at Eleusis, and what is her relationship with Demophoon,
Yes.
and also with her daughter Persephone.
Right.
All right.
And all of this will be, I'm sure at some point, I personally would love to kind of cover the Eleusinian mysteries
Right.
in their own right. But all of this is serves as kind of a background and foundation for really understanding those rites as well.
Yes, so as we drove past Eleusis on the way back to
You
Athens.
didn't stop?
Well, it was a hot afternoon, let me tell you. And I think, I'm a little more sensitive now to the appetite for antiquities of my traveling companions.
Yeah.
And I think it was surfeited.
Yes, really?
So I think it was time.
Okay.
So we're driving back from Corinth,
Yeah.
spent a hot afternoon in Corinth, past Eleusis, I made a little nod.
Oh, good.
And then we drove into Athens.
Kept on going.
That's right.
Right, gotcha. Right.
So the story begins, right, with Hecate, the triple witch goddess.
Right.
And she goes to Demeter, and together they go to Helios, the sun god, and Helios spills the beans as to where's Persephone.
Right. Right. So if you missed the previous episode, which I hope you did not, you know that Persephone has been taken by Hades, dragged down there, forced to be his bride, and now Demeter, her mother, is very upset about this. And so she's trying to figure out what's going on. And so Helios, he tries to soften the blow, and says something along the lines of, would it really be so bad if Hades, would be your son-in-law?
Right.
And then again, if you look at the genealogy, it causes some kind of weird family stuff.
Oh, very much. Now, why Helios though? There's a reason, isn't there?
Why does she go to Helios?
Yes.
Well, Helios sees everything.
Exactly.
Right.
It's the eye of the sun.
Yes.
Right. Unlike that recent and very disappointing blue moon.
Oh, I didn't. Oh, I was it disappointing? I didn't.
I hope you stayed inside on your couch.
I didn't even know about it.
Going out to see the blue moon. I don't know.
Somebody told me it was a super moon. That's even more disappointing.
There's not going to be another one until 2037.
Okay.
I plan to miss that one too.
Really? Okay. Right. Exactly.
Anyway,
but
unlike
Helios,
the blue moon, Helios sees everything.
Right. He's the eye in the sky looking at you. Right?
That's right. Yeah. He's like the camera mounted on the toll booth.
There you go.
When you go through, you think you can just slip past, maybe. We were going over a mountain pass and not paying attention. I got into the lane, which is automatic only.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm waiting for someone to show up so I can pay my toll. No one's showing up.
Yeah.
Then it's pointed out to me, you're in the wrong lane. So I had to do a reverse.
Oh,
you ever reversed in a toll booth?
Oh, no, that's
on a Greek mountain?
That sounds horrifying.
It was frightening. Thankfully, there were none of those little pointy spikes. Because that would have been, how do we put it, a really deflating feeling.
Right.
So we got into the proper lane, right? But all the time we were being watched by,
yes,
that camera of Helios, which sees all.
Did you get any crude, ancient curse gestures of the evil eye from people as you were trying to reverse back?
No, but I have to say, there were some disappointing times in Greece recently. I have often said that the Greek people are so sweet and loving and friendly. Not so much this time.
Really?
Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm getting crabby in my old age.
What was there some brusqueness?
There was a few times. I was for a moment I thought, am I in Paris? What's going on here?
Maybe August, isn't that supposed to be their vacation month?
Yeah, they all flee to the beach, so I should cut them some slack.
I guess so. Yeah.
So Helios sees everything.
Yep.
So Hecate and Demeter, they go to Helios and say, so what happened? It was done with Zeus's approval and wouldn't be so bad.
Right.
To have Hades as a son-in-law.
Right. And all of this is complicated by the fact that Zeus and Hades are also brothers.
That's right.
Of Demeter.
So what does Zeus do? He sells out his daughter as, bride, a plunder, really, to his own brother.
Yes.
Awful.
It's awful. Right. So this does not, as you can imagine, doesn't make Demeter any happier.
Right.
Right. So she disguises herself as an old woman and goes into mourning and wandering around, and she finally stops at the tiny town of Eleusis.
Now, why the disguise? Any sense of that?
I think that the hymn doesn't really explain it, but my sense in some ways it's another one. It's a story of the god disguising himself as somebody lowly to kind of see how will I be treated.
I see.
Right, and so she winds up in Eleusis, and Eleusis is the first place where they try to cheer her up, or they take her in,
right,
and they don't treat her like an outsider.
So this is the Xenia motif.
Yeah.
The Xenia motif again.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yep. And so there's stories of Zeus and Hermes.
We've even covered those.
That's right. We talked about on the
from Ovid.
Yeah. So she comes to Eleusis and she rests there by this famous well. But there is an actual well there.
Right.
And this is where the daughters of the king come down and discover her there. So Dave, would you read a little Greek there? And
yes.
The translation that I'll give will be a little bit before what you read and a little bit after as well.
All right, I'll read 4 lines here, beginning at 113, 5 lines, 113, and ending with 117. So it sounds a little bit like this. Tis pothenes sigreu palai gena on anthropon, tipte de nosfi poleios apestikes de demoisi, pil nasaienthe gunaika sana megardraskio enta, te likai hos super ho dekai hop loterai gega asin, hai kasafi lontai emen epe e dekai urgo.
nicely done.
Thank you.
There's that dactyl hexameter.
Yes, it's beautiful, isn't it? Maybe it's because I was in Greece.
Maybe, yeah. It's kind of
soaked it in.
Soaked it in, right? I've heard that, but that dum diddy dum dum.
Yes, I love it.
Love it. All right, the translation I'll be reading and using, it comes from Gregory Naj from Harvard University, and he translates: "They stood near her and spoke these winged words." This is that they would be the daughters of the king coming to the disguise.
The daughters of the king of Eleusis.
Yes, exactly right. And they say, "Who are you? Where are you from, old woman? Old among humans? Why is your path taking you far away from the polis? Why have you not drawn near to the palace? There, throughout the shaded chambers, are women who are as old as you are, and younger ones too, who would welcome you in word and in deed." So she spoke, and the lady goddess spoke with the following words: "Phila, dear children, whoever women you are among the female kind of humans, I wish you charis, I wish you pleasure and happiness from our relationship. Starting now, I shall tell you, it is not unseemly, since you asked for me to tell you the truth. Doso is my name. It was given to me by my honored mother, but that was then. I am from Crete, having traveled all over the wide stretches of the sea against my will." Reminds me a lot of what something like Odysseus would say, right?
Yes, it does. Right? Very much.
He invents a name, or she invents a name and invents a point of origin.
Right.
Yep.
And the name is laden with meaning, right?
Yes.
Doso, I shall give.
I shall give, right. And so a little hint of kind of the gift of the mysteries to come.
That's right. What's coming is a demonstration of her generosity.
Right. And so the fact that we have this elite family, the girls of the household coming down, and again offering a kind of zinnia, and asking, "Why haven't you come to the palace? I mean,
right.
We would treat you very, very well." And so there's that offer of zinnia that shows that they are, I think, worthy of the attention of this goddess.
Absolutely.
Yep. So
now,
yeah, go ahead.
Eleusis is located right on the Gulf, is it not?
It is.
This would be the Saronic Gulf, just west of Attica, and Demeter comes up to the shore there, right? This all takes place on the beach, does it not?
The scene that we're here,
yes.
right here. Well, the well. I mean, if we connect the well of the story with the well that's there, is right outside the sacred area.
I see.
Right. So it's a ways from the sea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was hoping that the seashore is where a lot of action in tragedy and myth takes place.
Yeah.
Do you know why?
Why is that?
Because it's liminal.
Oh, really?
Now you got me talking liminal.
You're using my material down there?
It's the line between the aquatic and the terrestrial,
sure.
Right? It's a naturally liminal place.
It definitely is, right? Yeah. So she's at this well, and then she asked the young girls, "Is there any place where I could get some work
as a nanny,
as a governess, right?"
This is like Mrs. Demeter fire.
Exactly right. And the girls say, "Hey, you're in luck because their mother, the queen, Metaneira, she says, has recently had a kid, Demophoon or Demophoon, depending on what you're reading." And they run to their mother, the queen, and she says, "Bring her on in." And so, I mean,
wait a minute.
Yeah.
No background check?
No
Who
references.
Is this?
I know.
This woman just wanders in from, the shore and shows up at the well, and I'd like to be a nanny, a governess. Okay, here's my child.
And just kind of hand over the prince.
Right.
Right. It seems a little ill thought out.
You have kids, right? I'm sure that from time to time they have been cared for by a persons other than yourself and Mrs. Winkle.
It's true.
Would you just, hire someone who shows up on the doorstep?
Never.
Of course not.
Never. No.
Because you're reasonable.
Yeah, exactly. But what this is, I think we're supposed to see that Metaneira, even though she doesn't know it yet, she senses there's something bigger here.
I see.
And so she eagerly says, "Yes, bring this woman. I don't know why, but this is a good idea."
So we're supposed to suspend our disbelief and our incredulity?
Yes.
So this is not altogether dissimilar from Moses' sister Miriam.
Yeah.
Finding the child, and she's watching the child, and along comes Pharaoh's daughter, and she says, "Well, how about my mother? She would make a great nurse for this child."
Right. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that corollary, but that's it's right in that same wheelhouse.
Definitely.
Yeah.
While we're on the point, if I may digress just momentarily,
please.
2 explanations for the similarity.
Yeah.
Right. The one explanation is that the Demophoon story is an imitation of the older story. I don't think that's very plausible because no one makes that suggestion until the later Christian apologists. Then when they feel the pressure from Greco-Roman myth and they're attacked and saying, some of our stories are pretty similar. You guys, you Hebrews, stole them and you Christians stole them from Greco-Roman myth. Then the Christian apologists turned the tables and said, no, you stole them from us because ours are older. So that's possible, but I think a much better explanation is it's just similar human experience.
I would think so too, right? I mean, I think if you were to and you would do some broader comparative mythology, you'd find lots of these kinds of archetypal stories, right? So, and it
doesn't threaten the truth.
No, it doesn't threaten the truth, but you also can't boil it down to rows of dominoes where we can see where was the first one pushed, right? Myth doesn't work like that.
It's too difficult to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So Demeter is brought into Metaneira, and here I think this is the point where most scholars who are trying to deal with the question of what does this story have to do with the later mysteries, where we start to see maybe some of those elements that later show up in the rituals start to pop up. So Dave, how about a little bit more Greek here?
Yes, I'd love to do that. So these are lines 190 through 194, and it would sound something like this. Tein didos tesebas te eder chlorandet oshelen, eixe de hoi klismoiokai hedria astai anogen, alu de me ter hor e foros agla adordros, ethelen hedria astai pi klismoia faenu, al akeu sa nemim nekatao matakala balusa.
Nicely done.
Thanks. I was tripping a little bit.
Those are tough lines.
Yeah, I was tripping a little bit. And what does it mean?
It means she, Metaneira, was seized by a sense of eidos. That's that third word that you read there, that like a holy fear. And she yielded to Demeter, the chair which she was sitting, and she told her to sit down. But Demeter, the bringer of Horai, the giver of splendid gifts, refused to sit down on the splendid chair, but she stood there silent, with her beautiful eyes downcast.
Don't you hate when that happens, Jeff?
What?
You invite someone into your house and you say, here, sit on this splendid chair, and they just refuse?
I hate that.
Yes.
Right, yeah. I know you're joking.
Maybe.
But I do find it an irritant when you are charitable to someone and they refuse to kind of to accept any of that charity.
Yes,
right. Exactly.
That is obnoxious.
Right.
And it's so inexplicable.
Right. I know. No. After you. No. After you. By all means, after you. It's exhausting.
The Chippendale kind of thing.
Right. So she stood there silent until Yambe, the one who knows what is worth caring about and what is not, set down for her a well-built stool, on top of which she threw a splendid fleece. And on this Demeter sat down. Demeter, sorry. Holding with her hands a veil before her face.
So who is Iambe?
I think that she's a lady of the household.
Okay.
Right.
Connected to the retinue of Metaneira.
Yes, right. And her
the
name,
queen.
Her name shares the same root as like Iambics.
That's right.
And most people take this because of what happens next. The kind of the clipped iambic meter associated with jokes,
right,
and comedy.
That's right. So we should specify or stipulate for the audience that an iamb, which is spelled with a B, right, is a short foot followed by a long foot.
Yes.
So it's ba-ba, 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 like that.
Right. So like the iambic pentameter, which is most famously associated with Shakespeare.
Right.
It's a lot of that rhythm of the dialogue. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum.
Correct.
Ba-dum. Right.
To be distinguished from a trochee, which is long and then short. Ba-ba, ba-ba, ba-ba.
Exactly.
Like so.
Right. We should do an episode on meter.
We probably should.
Just put everybody to sleep.
It would be so riveting. I'm afraid if we did an episode on meter, we wouldn't measure up.
Oh, man. Wow. Well done.
Thanks.
All right. So Demeter, unsmiling, not partaking of food or drink, she sat there, wasting away with yearning for her daughter with a low-slung waistband. There's that
Persephone.
That fashion choice again. Right? Until Yambe, the one who knows what is dear and what is not, started making fun. Making many jokes, she's turned the holy lady's disposition in another direction, making her smile and laugh and have a merry thumos.
Right. So the thumos is that part of the person, I can't say human, it's Demeter, the person's psychology, which is susceptible to mirth.
Yes.
Passion. That's the thumos.
Right. Is it now that it's not, that word is not associated with any kind of location in the body? It's just kind of your spirit?
Well, in Platonic terms, there's a tripartite soul, right?
Right.
There's the hegemonikon, the ruling part. There's the spirited part, the thumos, and then there's the lower base kind of animal appetite part, which the name of which I can't remember right now.
Right.
The Greek for it.
But not imagined to be located like, beneath your shoulder blade.
I don't think so. In the pituitary.
Right.
The duodenum.
Right. So ever since Yambe has been pleasing Demeter with the sacred rites. And then Metaneira offered Demeter a cup, having filled it with honey sweet wine. But she refused, saying that it was divinely ordained that she was not to drink red wine.
So she won't sit on the velvet-covered chair with a beautiful tapestry and the built-in massage effect and the heat.
And the cup holder.
That's right. And she won't drink honey sweet wine.
No, but she will sit on this stool that Yambe offers.
Covered with a fleece.
And she will laugh at her jokes.
Okay.
Right. Then Demeter ordered Metaneira to mix some barley and water with delicate pennyroyal and to give her that potion to drink.
So barley and water, is this like beer? She won't drink wine, but she'll drink a Lowenbrau?
Something like that, right. So she doesn't want the fancy stuff. She wants, like Michelob.
Schlitz,
right.
10 cents a can.
Right. And so Metaneira, made the kukian, this drink.
This is the sacred barley drink.
Yes, and offered to the goddess just as she had ordered. So this is where a lot of speculation comes in, is that here it's not just Demeter accepting hospitality, but she's kind of outlining particular rites.
All right.
And so drinking the barley drink was something that the Eleusinian initiates did.
So is the theory here that the Eleusinian mysteries, the religious cult that grew up at Eleusis, had these particular features and this life, and then someone said, I need to write a hymn to Demeter in the Homeric style as an origin story to explain where all these things came from?
It's that impossible kind of chicken and egg type of argument, right? So, I mean, this hymn itself dates to 600s, maybe 7th century.
Yeah.
And and by that time, the Eleusinian rites had been going on for at least a couple hundred years.
Okay.
But again, whenever this poem was written down doesn't mean that's when it was composed.
That's true.
So how do you answer that question?
Well, without further evidence, we couldn't answer it.
Right. So I was just talking about this in my myth class yesterday about the difficulty of that, and the example I like to use is, so the word Aphrodite.
Right.
You could make an argument. It sounds like the foam-born one,
yes,
right?
Born from the sea foam.
Right. So was that a story? Was she named after that because that's what happens in her origin story,
right,
or was it a story created to kind of explain why her name sounds like that?
That's right.
And
who knows?
Who knows?
But I have some more questions about this kukeon.
Yeah.
Right? This is this drink that's barley and water. It's kind of a gruel. Is that right?
It sounds awful.
It sounds like grape nuts, frankly.
The worst.
You don't like grape nuts?
It's like eating gravel.
It's funny because I have another friend, a close friend. He knows who he is. He's probably not listening. Who has an irrational and passionate hatred of grape nuts. It's intense.
Really?
So much that I want to send him a box just as a prank.
Like this just comes up out of nowhere. It's just kind of his anger about grape nuts.
I don't know what it is. But I would need some way, though, to be able to film his response, right, when he opens the package and it's grape nuts. Yeah. It's horrific. Yeah. Speaking of horrific, we need to describe what apotropaic means. Because here in the notes, we're talking about apotropaic laughter and other elements.
Right. So apotropaic means literally a warding off or turning away, right? And there's lots of kind of superstitious rituals within, not just for the Greeks, but you find this around the world, that they're, speaking of liminal spaces,
right?
Those are spaces where, because they're liminal, they are spiritually charged and potentially dangerous.
Right.
And so many cultures will say, you speak a word, you make a gesture, you hang a symbol at the liminal place to protect you, to have an apotropaic effect. You ward off those. And so it's often an element in religious rites as well. This idea that, as a Christian, I remember growing up with that kind of that notion of like when you become a new believer, you are particularly vulnerable to spiritual attack. Like,
I don't remember that.
Wasn't part of your upper. I mean, it was almost presented to be kind of almost like a folktale.
Interesting.
But this idea that
I'm not quarreling with your experience that you didn't experience that. I'm just trying to think if I can find a some kind of similarity, and I can't find one.
Can't think of it, right? But kind of this idea that you're vulnerable because you're not a mature Christian, right? And I think in my study of ancient religions, I see elements of that. Is that when a ritual is being conducted, or when new initiates are being ushered across the threshold,
right,
it's fraught with spiritual danger. And so there's often apotropaic rituals, rites, symbols, utterances. In this case, I think the laughter that Yambe gets Demeter to speak is meant to be kind of cleansing. Right. So there's evidence that like the Romans, when you would cross into a threshold of someone's house, there's some evidence that you might utter kind of like a ritual laugh.
I see.
Like, ha ha. And that would have kind of, you just do it. It's like, not stepping on you don't step on the crack.
That's right.
And so
you carry your bride over the threshold so she doesn't bump her foot.
Exactly.
It's a Roman custom.
Right. Or she doesn't bump her foot or become possessed by the demons that hang out at the liminal places.
Yeah.
Right. And so that element of laughter here, this is not science, but it likely has something to do with kind of cleansing the room.
Yeah.
By mocking the spirits, you turn them away.
I see. So as we were traveling in Greece, you know this well, at the Shrine of Delphi, right?
Yes.
The Shrine of Apollo at Delphi, and the wonderful museum there, which has so many interesting finds. There are a number of tripods,
yes.
Bronze dedicatory tripods, which have mounted on the rim apotropaic griffins.
Yes.
Right. The griffin's head is supposed to be frightening.
Right.
And apotropaically turns away actually the evil spirits from messing with the tripod.
Exactly. Like the gargoyles on a medieval cathedral.
That's right. Similarly also, wherever you go in Greece, you can buy these evil eyes.
Yes.
Right. And it seems to me like a direct inheritance, a direct descendant of those apotropaic griffins.
Oh, without a doubt.
It's a white kind of an eyeball with a blue center, a blue pupil.
Yes.
And it is supposed to cancel the effects of the evil eye. If someone is looking at you askew,
yeah,
you just whip out this little beaded jewelry item,
right,
and it cancels them.
Right. Or if you wear it around your neck, you can be sure you have this unblinking counter eye,
right,
that's always looking, that's looking out for you, right?
For some reason, I just find that so funny.
I find it. I bought one of those.
You did?
I did a couple of Greece trips ago.
And how's it been working?
I like to, when I talk about the apotropaic stuff in myth.
It's a good example.
I bring it in and
right.
I say, look at this. This is a cheap trinket I bought near the Acropolis.
All of the bus drivers that I've had in Greece, they all have one of these slung over the rearview mirror.
Yes, indeed.
I guess it prevents people from rear-ending them, right?
Yeah, I guess so, right. I think I've also seen...
so you're not interested in mocking it, apparently, like I am.
No, I think it's...
Usually you're the mocker.
No, I don't know. I'm not moved to kind of mock this. I think it's because I find it so fascinating how deeply rooted it is. But I think I've seen, walking around Athens, I've seen locals wearing what appear to be like a very fancy... it's not the stupid trinket that I bought,
right?
But like a small, like a golden eye.
Maybe they spent more than €1.
Right. But it reminds me of that, in a way that someone might wear a cross around their neck.
Yes.
If you stop them and say, do you wear that because that wards off vampires, right?
Of course they would say no.
Of course they'd say no. And so, do you wear that eye around your neck because it's warding off the evil eye? I think they look at you like you're crazy.
Right. But it has some kind of vested meaning.
Yes. It's deeply rooted in the culture. Right. Yeah.
Speaking of deep roots.
Yes.
It's time for the ads.
Do it.
This episode of the Ad Nauseam podcast is brought to you by Ratio Coffee. Ratio Coffee, the brainchild of the entrepreneur, Mr. Mark Helweg from Portland, Oregon, has been bringing excellent coffee to folks like you and I for, I guess, about a decade. Folks like you and me, about a decade now.
Yeah.
Jeff, I was traveling recently.
Yes.
As we have discussed, and you know where this is going, don't you?
I do. You were disappointed by the coffee offerings.
Oh, my goodness.
Even in Greece.
I was very disappointed. Very disappointed. This is the level to which I sunk. Do you want to hear?
Okay.
I drank some instant coffee.
Oh, man. Boy, you were desperate.
I was desperate. Instant coffee is the kind of dust that might accumulate in the bottom of an envelope. Like say you put a number of miscellaneous items in an envelope and then you grind it up and sit on it maybe for a bus trip. Then you open it up and pour it into a cup with some hot water.
Yeah.
That's what I was drinking.
Oh, man.
It was so bad. And a couple of times I got some decent cappuccinos and some things like that. But for the most part, it was very disappointing.
You were longing for your ratio.
I really was. Now, Greek coffee,
I do.
Which is actually Turkish coffee.
Yeah.
But they insist on calling it Greek. It's okay. It's very sweet, a little gritty.
Yeah.
But I was so happy to get back to my ratio 8.
Yes.
And there it was waiting for me.
I imagine.
I brewed up a great pot the day we returned, and everything was right with the world.
It kind of helped you through any jet lag that you might have?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That great flavor, that great taste, the convenience, I really couldn't justify trying to take the ratio 8 with me. I mean, You're laughing because you know it's a solid machine.
Yes.
Do you think I could get that through security?
That would be tough.
That would
be tough. They would pause on that X-ray machine.
That's right.
And wonder what's going on here.
Or probably they would confiscate it and say, we need to keep this for further review and study. And then they'd be making coffee with it.
Right. Yeah. No, I feel the same way about my machine. I was thinking about Mr. Hellwig out there in Portland.
Right.
And we associate, I think probably for good reason in this country, the Northwest is kind of is like the home of
the coffee mecca.
It's a coffee mecca.
Yes, Starbucks was born in Seattle and so forth.
So for him to come out and do this from Portland,
right?
I think that shows a bit of confidence.
It's some moxie.
It says not only can I make it, but I'm going to make it in the coffee capital of this country.
That's right.
So it's more extraordinary.
Yes, and it's a fantastic machine. So Jeff, how has your coffee ritual been lately?
Oh, it's been I live by it, right? So every morning I hit that button,
right?
It's ready to go.
You pour a bowl of grape nuts. You get it going,
right?
And you're waiting for the ratio.
Yep. So and it just blinks through very simply to that bloom stage, the brew stage, and then it's ready to go.
Incredible.
I pour a cup. I bring it up to my wife. She loves it.
And you say, honey, I'm going to tuck into these grape nuts.
That's right.
I'll see you on the other side.
Exactly. Say, honey, I'll be downstairs, but you'll be able to hear me.
As I chew through this gravel, as you say.
So listeners, we encourage you to go to ratiocoffee.com and get one of these fine machines, the Ratio 8 or its younger brother, the Ratio 6. And Dave, if they want to save big time on this, what's the coupon code they should use?
Well, they have to enter the September coupon code, which is AN, as in ad nauseum, CO as in coffee, ANCO3, and then the letter N.
And the N stands for?
Naturally delicious.
Fantastic.
It's just 2 words, but you'll cut me some slack. ANCO3N. And what will that get them, Jeff?
That will get them 15% off their entire order.
That's correct. Now, you said maybe they should go check it out, but it's not a cheap machine.
It's not.
So what kind of counsel will you offer these folks?
I'd say, this is an investment in your coffee future. This is something that you will hang on to for years. If you want to pass it down to other coffee lovers in your life, this is going to last you for the rest of your coffee loving life.
There you go. The rest of your coffee loving life. This episode is also brought to you by
Hackett Publishing, another one of my favorites. These guys, I'm always reminded of them at the beginning of a new school year because I order a number of texts from them. One of my favorites, Stanley Lombardo's translation of the Odyssey. We've worked with Lombardo's translations, other Hackett Publishings. We did
the Iliad,
the Iliad, the
Aeneid.
The Aeneid. Fantastic stuff. So I can't say enough about their texts. I love how affordable they are. My students love how affordable they are. I love the massive selection that they have that you can check out on their website. And I love just how good they've been to us. They believed in us from the beginning when we were a couple of
right.
We were even lesser nobodies than we are now.
If that's possible. And instead of just, cursing the darkness in terms of the supposed cancellation of classical culture, and we're not going to get political here, but instead of doing that, they said, well, we support the classics, so we'd love to support your podcast.
Yes.
And you, listener, have the opportunity to do 2 wonderful things, I would say. You have the opportunity to score for yourself some great texts at a really inexpensive cost, and you have the opportunity to support this podcast, for which we would be really grateful.
Yes.
So what do they need to do, Jeff?
They should go to hackettpublishing.com. That's HACKETT publishing.com. Check out their wide selection. It's not just classics. They have a ton of classics, but it's from all corners of academia. Find the text that you want, drop them in the little grocery basket, and then type in this coupon code, AN2023. So AN ad nauseum, and then the current year. And Dave, that will get them
20% off and
free shipping.
Check it out. All right, Jeff, so as we get back into it, where are we in the midst of the story here between Metaneira and Demeter?
Right, so after they both choke down that awful barley drink,
right?
Metaneira hands over the child, Demophoon, to Demeter, and then she starts doing something.
To Demeter in disguise. As Doso.
Right, so Metaneira has a feeling, they all have a feeling that there's something bigger here, but they don't know who she is.
Right, so the way to identify a goddess is smells good, very tall, about 9 feet, and floats.
There's floating?
Well, yeah, they don't walk across. You know this. Just like the goddess Venus in the Aeneid, Incadit. She kind of floats.
Yes, right, okay.
But Demeter's, she's disguised. So these things aren't obvious.
Right. There's just the eidos, that kind of that sense of something holy is here. And so she starts to take care of this child. And then she does something that is to the child's mother is terrifying. She starts putting it each night in this fire and anointing the child with ambrosia.
What?
Yes.
Takes the child and puts it into the fire?
Into this holy fire by which she's attempting to make this child immortal.
So she's purging away his mortal parts.
Slowly kind of burning away the mortal parts. Right?
Is this painful for the child?
The hymn suggests that it is not. This is not an ordinary fire or on the Weber grill, outside in the courtyard, right?
Or the green bean, or sorry, not bean, the egg.
The egg. Oh man, I want one of those.
We don't have time to digress into barbecue, but right. Yes, I would like one too.
Yeah. And so then the dramatic moment happens when Metaneira walks in on this ritual. And of course, what would you do if you saw your baby being thrust into a fire?
So when I teach this, when I taught this in myth, I always tried but seldom succeeded in showing the comic tragic nature of this revelation, right? There is Demeter putting the child into the fire, and Metaneira comes down for, I don't know, she can't sleep, so she's going to get some milk and a cookie or something. And what? You're putting my child into the fire? These are not the terms on which I hired you.
Right.
And
that's where she's regretting not getting the references.
That's right.
The background.
Should have done a background check.
Right, because it looked practiced. It certainly wasn't the first time that this.
Right.
Right. So she walks in on this, and by doing so, she kind of interrupts the ritual. And as Naj's translation goes, Demeter is angry. Ignorant humans, heedless, unable to recognize in advance the difference between fortune good and fortune and future bad. In your heedlessness, you have made a big mistake, a mistake without remedy. And so the idea here is that Demeter was, of course, she wanted to give the gift of immortality to this ordinary child. He's a prince, but he's a prince of, Eleusis is not a big town.
No.
This is backwater.
Right. It's very small.
Very, very small.
All they have is the well.
Right. Exactly. That's it. That's why people go there.
Right.
And so she would have made Demophoon immortal, but because the ritual was interrupted, now that's off the table.
No, so is it that she can't start over? Is it like a complicated chemistry experiment? And she, it's too far along that she just can't go back and restart? Or is she just petulant and indignant? Is it a kind of punishment?
I would say it's more A than B.
Okay.
I think the idea is that I think we're supposed to see kind of the hint of the mystery here, that if the ritual doesn't go right, if the ritual is messed with, then the ritual is ineffective, and you can't just simply go back to return to zero. And so she says that after Demeter calms down, Metaneira calms down. And she says,
"What about Demophoon? Does he cool off?"
Yeah, exactly. He's wrapped in. He's there by this time. He's kind of wrapped in a towel.
Okay.
And Demeter says, "Your child's going to remain mortal. Sorry, because you ruined this, but he will still be honored." And this is where kind of the door opens.
Okay.
And this brings me back to Alderink's article. Is that what was going to be just the gift from the goddess to this one individual? Now Demeter is starting to think bigger. She says, "Well, what if I allowed anybody to become immortal, again through the avenue of the mysteries, not being
no burning,
but anybody can go through this.
Maybe a little heartburn,
maybe that barley drink that can't go down easy, right? Exactly.
Maybe they put some sriracha on it. Sriracha's in everything these days.
You put on your grape nuts.
That's right.
But so she says, I'll give the gift of immortality through the mysteries to Eleusis, and you'll host these things. And so it becomes the gift which was for one is now potentially for all.
So every year the men of Eleusis, right?
Yep.
They wage war with each other.
Yeah, this is
a ritual battle.
This is a weird detail.
Okay.
And
as opposed to all the other details, which were so normal, the barley and the burning.
Right. Well, to come out of the gate with, okay, I'm going to give you my mysteries, and that involves a kind of a mock battle that the Eleusinian men will fight against each other every year.
Right.
It's like, okay, what exactly does this mean? And so some think this is, well, the Eleusinians, like every Greek city-state, had their own games.
Yes.
And so maybe this is also the origin story of those.
Etiological.
Right. Or is it a kind of a death rite to kind of compensate for the death of Demophoon? Demophoon's body will die. You won't be immortal in that literal kind of way. We don't really know.
It's the celebratory games at a time of a funeral, right?
I suppose.
Like we see in the Iliad and in the Odyssey and in the Aeneid.
Maybe that's the best way to look at it, right? And then she gives some very specific instructions. She says, I want you to build a temple for me. But I always think that detail is interesting, is I want you to build it at the foot of the Acropolis and not on top of the Acropolis. Right? And it always strikes me as that's very deliberate. Can you think of another temple remains that were built not on the Acropolis? And is the message here that Demeter says, the temple's down here. I'm down here with you. This is a new kind of approach.
I don't know enough about this to give a definitive answer. I mean, there are temples all over the place.
Right.
But the main temple, I was thinking of the Hephaestion, which I just saw, right, in the Agora.
Yeah.
It's not on the Acropolis.
But it's on a hill.
It is on the hill.
Yeah.
So I don't know, really.
Yeah.
I'm not qualified to say. I think I'd be careful about saying that the presence of the temple down low, I'd be careful about drawing the conclusion from that this is meant to be taken as Demeter's among the people because the temple's more accessible.
Yeah. It just strikes me as that's it's a pointed detail in the poem, right? It's not just say, build me a temple, and then if you go to Eleusis, that temple happens to be at the foot of the Acropolis,
right,
and this happens to be the goddess of this particular city. It strikes me as it's an important detail if we don't know exactly what it means.
Right.
And so at this point, that's when Demeter reveals herself. Hey, drops the mask and says, this is who I really am. And the women are terrified. They pray all night. They realize kind of in whose presence they have been.
They probably review their behavior of the last few hours.
Exactly right.
To see what they've done, make sure none of it was out of line.
Right. And then they go to their father, Achilleus, which I think is also interesting, is that he hasn't shown up yet. Right. All of this has been in the hands of the women of the household and of the town. And Achilleus, just like with Metaneira agreeing that making this woman their nanny for the boy, he asks no questions and starts to get the stuff done which the goddess asked him to do.
So he just falls in line.
Yep, says, I'll do it. Let's start building.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So this brings us to Persephone. What about Persephone?
Right, finally,
have we forgotten her?
Exactly. What's going on with her? So Demeter, of course, she's offered this gift to Eleusis, but this hasn't solved the problem that she's interested in solving. She still is missing her daughter, and she still is taking that out on the rest of humanity.
Right.
And so she says, if I don't have my daughter back, good luck growing grain.
Right.
And
no barley, no grape nuts.
No grape nuts.
No Wheaties.
No, forget it.
No Rice Krispies.
Nothing.
It's all done.
The whole cereal aisle is going to be
That's
empty.
correct.
Right. And then Zeus at this point starts to get nervous. This always reminds me of when I've taught like the Epic of Gilgamesh, is when the gods, they send the flood,
right?
And in that story, they send the flood because the humans are too noisy,
right?
And but then they realize, oh, wait a minute, it's their sacrifices.
A lot of foresight on the part of those gods.
Right. It's their sacrifices is kind of how we eat,
right?
And so they get really, really desperate.
We need that smoke and that fat of the animals.
And the same thing here, Zeus starts to get nervous. Is that if the grain goes away, the people go away, and then we don't get our honors anymore,
right?
Right. And so,
can I read a little bit of this here?
Yeah, you want the translation?
Yeah,
let's do it.
This is Gregory Nage. At this moment, Demeter could have destroyed the entire population of humans with harsh hunger, thus depriving of their time honor the dwellers of the Olympian abodes. Sacrificial portions of meat for eating or for burning, if Zeus had not noticed with his nous, his mind, taking note in his heart. First he sent Iris with the golden wings to summon Demeter with the splendid hair, with the beauty that is much loved. That is what he told her to do, and she obeyed Zeus, the one with the dark clouds, the son of Kronos, and she ran the space between sky and earth quickly with her feet. She arrived at the city of Eleusis, fragrant with incense, and she found in the temple Demeter, the one with the dark robe. Addressing her, she spoke winged words. Demeter, Zeus, the one who has unwilling knowledge, summons you to come to that special group, the company of the immortal gods. So then come. May what my words say, which come from Zeus, not fail to be turned into action that is completed.
So he's trying to bribe her. Says, listen, you can
a promotion.
What's that?
A promotion,
right? So Demeter is, you're one of the official, 12, right? Right. You come on in.
A title.
Right.
Probably got a nice rain jacket or something like that with a little logo on it, like an Olympian logo.
Exactly. A tote bag.
Better parking, maybe.
Way better parking
at Olympus.
Exactly. You don't have to take the train in anymore.
Right. Maybe a little bag of trail mix or something for the ascent.
Exactly. But Demeter's not having it.
No.
And so this, in a scene which reminds me of kind of Achilles sulking in his tent, various beings come by to try to persuade her, try to bribe her with gifts. And finally Zeus says, okay, the only thing that's going to work here is getting Persephone back.
Now, this is, I would say, a good report of Demeter's character.
Yeah.
She can't be bought.
She cannot be bought.
What she wants is justice for her daughter, restoration to this, of her with this poor girl.
Right. And I would say that comparatively, the vast majority of the Greek gods and goddesses, as I've encountered them, could definitely be bought.
Oh, yes.
They've all the time. They all got a price.
Sometimes for a fairly low price.
Exactly, right. So this is that's also kind of makes her extraordinary.
Yes.
Right. And so...
do you want to continue on with the translation there?
Sure. And so Zeus sends Hermes down to Hades and says, listen, tell my brother he's got to give the girl back. So he spoke. Hades, king of the dead, smiled with his brows, and he did not disobey the order of Zeus the king. Swiftly he gave an order to bright-minded Persephone. Go, Persephone, to your mother, the one with the dark robe. Have a kindly disposition and thumos in your breast. Do not be too upset, excessively so. I will not be an unseemly husband to you in the company of the immortals.
It's a little late for that,
It is a little late.
He stole her away violently.
Right, exactly. Now he's Mr. Nice Guy?
Yeah,
right.
No thanks.
I am the brother of Zeus the father. If you are here, you will be queen of everything that lives and moves about. Not a lot living and moving about in Hades.
In the underworld?
Right? And you will have the greatest honor in the company of the immortals. Those who violate this will get punishment for all days to come, and those who do not supplicate you with sacrifice, performing the rituals in a reverent way, executing perfectly the offerings that are due. So he's trying to bribe her. So you stay down here, and you're going to get a promotion.
Right.
So he spoke, and high-minded Persephone rejoiced. Swiftly she set out with joy, but he gave her stealthily the honey-sweet berry of the pomegranate to each, peering around him. As I understand, the Greek there is very weird. It's kind of like more kind of passing it around her or something.
Okay.
Like that. He did not want her to stay for all time over there at the side of her honorable mother, the one with the dark robe.
So let's talk pomegranates for just a moment. Mm-hmm. Right. What do you think about pomegranates?
I like pomegranate juice.
Yes.
And I like the seeds.
Okay.
I think they're tasty.
They are tasty, but don't you find that eating a pomegranate is just way too much work?
It is a lot of work, and it's really messy.
Each individual seed has a tiny bit of fruit flesh, which is delicious, but there are so many.
Right.
It's like, remember when we used to eat watermelons with seeds before there were seedless watermelons?
Yes.
A pomegranate is like the most seedy watermelon you can imagine.
It's very true.
You can't take a bite without hitting a seed.
Right. And that juice will stain anything.
That's right. So in Athens, you know the spot I'm talking about. It's on like the north, it'd be on the northwest corner of the Agora. Not too far from the Stoa of Attalus. There's a little piazza there plaza before you enter the flea market. Mm-hmm. There are stands right there with enormous pomegranates.
Yes.
The size of volleyballs almost.
They're
huge.
Right.
The last time I was in Greece, we bought one, and it was a tremendous amount of work, but delicious.
Delicious, right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as I understand it, there's still a folk tradition in Greece today that if you chop a pomegranate in half and you open it up, what you're looking at is a map of the underworld.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, right. And then it later on it becomes, you'll see pomegranates a lot during Easter.
Okay.
It becomes a symbol of resurrection. Right. So I learned a lot from the pomegranate's Wikipedia page.
Okay.
Right. That it's
pomegranate has its own Wikipedia page?
It does. And it's a symbol of death in many cultures around the world, and then it becomes kind of redeemed and turned into a symbol of life in kind of Christian iconography.
Yeah. It means fruit with seeds.
Fruit with
pomegranate.
Right.
So what does Persephone do? We all know this story, I trust.
Yeah, and so she's stuck, and so by the pomegranate as a symbol of death, my students will ask, well, who cares that she ate this? But the idea is
that's the wrong question.
Well, I mean, they don't understand. Like, well, why would that be such a big deal? And then you say, well, the pomegranate is being kind of synonymous with death.
Right.
Once she eats it, she's permanently part of the underworld now. She can't fully ever leave it permanently.
Only for the number of months of which she eats the seeds, right?
Exactly. Right. And so Persephone, of course, she's excited. She doesn't listen to any of Hades' bribe. She runs to her mother, but and of course Demeter is ecstatic, but she also knows something is immediately wrong. And she says, "Did you eat anything down there?" And she confesses, "Yeah, that's the tasty fruit with seeds." And Demeter is upset, and this is where we get this famous compromise,
right?
Where her daughter will spend a third of the year with Hades as the queen of the dead. And she will actually do all those things that Hades promised her.
Right.
And then the other 2/3 of the year, she will be with her mother.
So that's Greece, right? That's in Greece. 1/3 of the year, approximately 4 months of winter, and the rest is beautiful, balmy Mediterranean weather.
Exactly.
If this myth were reset in Michigan, maybe?
Yeah, she'd be spending good 11 months of the year.
Of Smarch.
Right. So yeah, this myth is in etiology of the seasons.
Right.
And so when the annual cycle of death and rebirth of Persephone and Demeter's response to it explains why some things grow some part of the year and why it doesn't during a smaller part of the year.
That's right.
Yeah. So and that is the core of the mystery. And so someday when we do an episode on the Eleusinian mysteries, I think that what the mysteries are geared towards is that by going through the mysteries that Demeter gives as a gift to Eleusis, you tap into that power.
Right.
You become Persephone, which
you
I think,
identify with her, so you're supposed to share in her death and rebirth.
Right. And I think it's striking that one of the common names for Persephone is Kore. Right? She's just simply girl. She's daughter. And so that then the Demophoon that she chose to kind of make immortal, he's not a hero.
Right.
He's not something extraordinary. He's just kind of he's fairly ordinary.
The kid who happened to be there.
Right. And I think that's part of the idea is that Persephone, yes, she's the goddess and queen of the dead, but she's also just simply that girl next door. And so you can be like her.
Okay.
So yeah.
I'm persuaded.
Excellent.
All right. So we need to wrap this up here then, don't we?
We do. Are we up against it?
Yes, we are. We're going to wind down. I think the International Pomegranate Society wants to come and borrow the vomitorium. I think they booked it for this afternoon. The IPS.
That's a tremendous coincidence.
Well, it's strange, isn't it?
It is very.
The IPS would want to be here.
Right. On the day we're talking about that.
Right.
I know.
Right. They brought their little spoons and their little bibs to sort their way through the forest of seeds.
Yeah, we got. I don't want to be around.
No,
to watch
thank
that.
you.
No, thanks. Right. So, Dave, before we get out of here, tell us a little bit about LLPSI and the Moss method, would you?
I'd love to. So Moss method for Greek takes you from neophyte
to erudite.
That's correct. It's self-paced, expert, and accessible. Module 1, 40 lessons, 40 video instructional videos. That was nicely done, huh? And 40 homework assignments. I could talk about the exams and the quizzes, but maybe the best part of the course is that every Friday you get to spend time with me and other students from around the world. This morning we had students from California, students from Switzerland, and students from India.
Fantastic. Wow.
All getting together and reading some Greek. We read the story of Philoctetes, adapted, Philoctetes from Troy, and we read a little bit of the Gospel of Mark.
Wow.
And it was a good time.
Fantastic.
So if you're interested in taking this course, a little Greek or maybe none, go to mossmethod.com, check out the numerous free lessons and see if you would like to sign up. I think it's an excellent value. There may be better instruction. It would be immodest and maybe inaccurate for me to say this is the best, but I am confident it is the best value of what you get for your dollar.
What I love about it's not just like a books on tape. They have direct access to you. And I think that one of the coolest things too is you can interact with people from around the world.
Yes, right? It's really very interesting.
Yeah.
And if you want to study some Latin, go to latinperdiem.com/LLPSI, which stands for Lingua Latina Per Se Illustrata. This is the textbook of Hans Orberg. And I have taught the first 9 chapters, Unit 1, to live students in a studio kind of environment, a Zoom environment. And you can learn along with them, learn from their mistakes and successes, and you can learn ab initio, from the ground up, gain a good, solid knowledge of Latin. Again, an excellent value, I believe.
Fantastic. All right. We got people to thank, as always. Mishka, our wonderful engineer, who makes things sound so well produced, like our shout out said this at the beginning of the show.
Recognize the excellent production value.
Yeah.
We're certainly in agreement with that. Thank you to Scott Venzen, who provides the screaming intro and outro guitar music, and Ken Tamplin, who produced a lot of that music and performs on it as well, and provides the bumper music for the ads.
Yes. Hey, if you want to get a shout out, if you got a question, if you got an idea for a show, you got a complaint, give us. Do
we want complaints?
We do want them.
All right.
You can send them my way. I don't care.
Okay.
You can write to Dave at dave@adnauseam.com. Don't forget the V. Or you can write to me, Jeff at Adnauseam. Don't forget that.
The V.
Yes.
That's right. So as we move on out of here, we have a couple of little items to talk about.
Okay.
First is next week's episode, number 128, is going to be entitled Giving Goliath His Due.
Ooh.
This is a book I was reading while I was on vacation. It's about the Mycenaeans and the Philistines.
That sounds interesting.
Yes, by a scholar named Bierling, who wrote this book some 30 years ago or so, and it's a fascinating archaeological read about the connection between the Mycenaeans and the Philistines.
Would this have to be Neil Bierling?
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you know this individual?
I do.
All right.
I worked at a bakery owned by his family.
That's incredible. Yes. We'll have to work that in as well.
Yeah.
And Jeff has the gustatory parting shot, but before we cue that up, going to just let you know, listener, that at the end of this episode, we're going to play a short song that was written and performed by one of our former students.
A very good student.
Yes, this is Mr. Michael Cornelis.
Yeah.
And Michael lives out in California with his wife, Allie, who is also a phenomenal student. He teaches out there, and he wrote and performed this song called Persephone.
Talented guy, man.
And I think both of his brothers, Darren and Kevin, performed on it, and the bass player was some guy named Anthony.
Is that right?
Whose last name I don't remember. But I wanted to just give you a little bit of the lyrics here because I really love this song. So it's told from the perspective of Hades. Hades is telling this song. So the lyrics go like this. Hey girl, I'll miss you mightily. 7 months you're away from my bed. But hey girl, there's that chore, right? The world's delighting. Your white arms bring wine and bread. But I'm getting lonely down here without you, Persephone.
Fantastic.
So I think you'll really enjoy this as we move here to the end of the episode. But now, Jeff,
yes,
who is Rita Rudner, and what does this mean?
Rita Rudner is a comedian.
Okay,
has kind of a quirky, absurdist style.
All right,
and this is the quote I found from her.
You're gonna have to explain it to me, though.
She says, I was a vegetarian until I started leaning toward the sunlight. Like, so now she's heliotropic because she's eating so many plants.
I was vegetarian until I started leaning.
Right, like a plant would do. You know,
I don't get it.
Like a leaf turning towards the sunlight.
Yeah, I get that, but why was she vegetarian previously?
Well, this was a result. She was eating so many plants that she started leaning towards the
I got it. So she was vegetarian until she felt herself being transformed into a plant.
Exactly.
I got it. Okay, roll the song.
Hey girl, I miss you mightily. 7 months you're away from my bed. But hey girl, the world's delighting. Your white arms bring wine and bread. But I'm getting lonely down here without you, Persephone. Hey girl, I miss you mightily. Persephone. Hey girl, I miss you mightily. Hey girl, I miss you mightily. And pomegranate kiss. 'Cause hey girl, my world is frightening. My only friend is a dog with 3 heads. And I'm getting lonely down here without you, Persephone. Hey girl, I miss you my Persephone. Hey girl, breaks the hearts of the dead. So I'm getting lonely out here without you, Persephone. Hey girl, I miss you, my 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 I'm getting lonely out here.